the respect that they'll be able to decode words and make sense of what they're reading. But we all know that there's more than just that. Once you get a year and a half or 2 years of being able to improve your reading, no matter what that level is, we all know that there's writing, there's parts of speech, there's study skills, and study skills has 15 different things that it umbrellas. So when the parents are wondering, is this fixing my child? Well, it's helping them to start to accept the language better, start to understand, and be able to show their true intelligence in school. However, they're going to need support all the way through. You know, that's just them not understanding truly what a language-based learning difference is. And perhaps, Maggie, that's what needs to happen with the parents, you know, is a psychology instruction to them as to what the diagnosis means, not is this program the fix for everything.
And a lot of times with the students, an emotional piece is strong for
Exactly.
The academic piece, and that part of that really has to be addressed. The emotional will go right along with being so behind like this. That I'm having some concerns about with FCPS, being able to provide that. Where you're an individual therapist, you can kind of work that into your therapy with the one-on-one. And we can too. We're in a small group, we're able to do that, but there is even bigger pieces.
How old are your students that you're working with?
Right now, 2nd grade.
Oh, okay. Boy, that's tough. That's tough that they're having that emotional piece that young. I thought you were
Well,
going to say middle
no,
school.
I'm not saying my students
okay.
are, but I know that as time goes
Oh, yeah.
on into older grades, you know, those upper grades in elementary and middle school, you know, it really does
Fourth
come
grade
on.
on, typically.
And my second grade group, I feel like already has a pretty severe emotional impact already.
I
And
do
they
too.
really are discouraged.
Yes, well, mine, and two out of three of mine qualified for ESY. And the one mom who, I'm not his case manager, but the one mom contacted me and said that he was going to attend, but he refused to bring the paper back to school because he just cried and cried and cried. Because he does not want to.
More
Summer school.
Yep.
One other thing I would say, though, about increasing parent insight into this, we had talked about this early in the proposal stage. We do dyslexia simulations, and they're very, very powerful for teachers and parents to attend together. It's an incredible moment, and it only takes about 90 minutes, where everyone begins to see through the eyes of this child, whether it's your student or whether it's their very own child. And it is somewhat unifying, where you both begin to see how this child is working. And the parent gets to understand the complexity of this. And the teacher's challenge of trying to break this down, they really get to feel that. So we were always happy to do those. Those are free, and we have a really good facilitator from Northern Virginia who travels up here, once Carol even. It's the parents really understand it and they learn it. It builds a lot of shared compassion there. They have compassion, but among the whole group. And it's a good starting point for them to begin to do research on what this really means, and then to understand kind of, in some ways, the limitations of the teachers in these settings to be able to really, as they say, fix it. They will learn it can't be fixed. They will learn that there are methods that work, but they will learn it can't be fixed. So just, think about that going forward, but we're always happy to do those.
Okay, we're going to get started, and there's the agenda for today came about because you can take one and pass both sides. The agenda came together today because we supervisors all talked about what we were seeing that we had in common. What questions were we seeing? What errors were we seeing? What explanations needed to be greater? So my piece is just one of about 5 different things on our agenda. And one of the things I was consistently seeing was this aspect of decoding. And so I just wanted to go into that a little bit more. the actual coding process. So I'm going to take lesson 19 as an example. Who is teaching students greater than lesson 15? Raise your hand. Okay, wow, you've gone pretty far. So, in a short period of time, which is, that's remarkable.
I think they're, but if you,
I
they're
didn't
older,
start
that.
they're
Yeah.
older kids.
Like that I
They're, most
agree.
of them are
Okay.
older kids.
Okay, and I can appreciate we have different degrees of severity, so, but I just wanted to get a feel for.
Different numbers and groups probably.
Mhm.
Yes,
Some
this is
groups, it
true.
seems like there's one or.
This is true.
It could be more, so.
So this will benefit everybody then, no matter what lesson you're at, but I'm going to use lesson 19 as just an example. You don't have your binders with you, but as something that's very familiar to you, when you get to the reading practice, you have that little vowel verse, right? Well, early on, there was some confusion that that was part of the coding order. And as you've gotten farther into this, you're probably realizing that the vowel verse is just what it is. It's a review of an open syllable and a closed syllable and how you decode that vowel. So then you go into the particular coding steps, right? Okay, so up until, if you look at this paper I made you, up until lesson 22, the author of Language Foundations breaks these coding marks down specifically, and she lines them up, and you just chunk, go down, and you're writing them on the board, and that's taking time. So after lesson 22, you start to consolidate what we call all the specials. And that's what I wanted to give you a little bit of assistance in how we can make that transition. So if you take one of these little envelopes and pass them down, and I made you some manipulatives. So take the manipulatives out and just put them right out in front of you in no specific order. And those manipulatives are in these boxes on your handout. Okay? So look at your handout and look at lesson 7. That is where your first, see right here, follow me along right here. That is where your first decoding special mark is, which is two consonants together like SS, LL, and you would cross out the second one. In lesson 8, you're getting the mark that makes the voice sound of S. In lesson 9, you're introducing the first suffix and it's being boxed, so on and so forth. That's where they happen in order, okay? So you're adding to this. By the way, she doesn't even add the tittle above the A, but we're expected to be marking that. So I included that as part of your coding order. I don't know if anybody
Yes,
realized that.
I did wonder
That's only if it's a phrase though, not if it's a sentence.
Right, only,
Yeah.
that.
yeah,
Phrase.
Yeah.
okay. So, I would put these in front of the student, but only as far as you are. If you're only on lesson 9, you won't put all of these out. You'll give them the envelope, but you'll have taken out lesson 12 through 22, the specials marks, okay? So let's just put out double consonant right in front of you. That's this with the line mark through. And let's put out voiced S. And let's put out box your suffix. And the vowel verse, which are these two. Okay? Those are the only ones you're going to have in front of you. Okay, if you're on lesson 9. Okay, I'm going to take you further, but let's just say you're on lesson 9. So you would say to your student, we're going to do the vowel verse. And so which of these 5 little pieces of paper is the start of my vowel verse? Class, which one would you pick? There you go. Okay, so you start your vowel verse and you just put that right at the top of, the desk area. And you go through your vowel verse with the closed syllable, and then you ask the students, and what is my next part of my vowel verse? And you say the open, and you go through the motion, the hand motions, and the open. So now you've done that, and you say, that's a great vowel verse, let's put that aside. Now we're going to start the coding order. What's the first thing we do when we look at a word? We box a suffix. That's your first thing. What's the second thing we do? Between consonants. And then what do we look for? So basically what you're doing is you're going down this list that you put on the board, but you're using the manipulatives, and they are touching and they are saying what they are. Okay? So that's just going through lesson 9. Now if you're going all the way through lesson 19, you will have everything like this out. And you'll continue to put those, name them, talk about them, put them in order. So instead of you just writing on the board and saying, this is our coding order, what's next, they're actually, it's a little more hands-on and a little more tactile for them. Okay, so they put those in order. So when you get to lesson 22, all of a sudden you're getting words like rabbit words, right? And you will do identification of your vowel pattern, vowel to vowel. You'll be identifying vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel pattern, dividing the 2 syllables and the accent. Then all of these become one special area of special marks. I'm going to ask you to put your memory hats on. When we were working in the class together and Trauda was instructing us and she asked people to go to the board and you would code some words, she called them specials, remember? And that's exactly what happens. They don't just continue this big long line of marks and that's part of our coding order. They just become one in a group of specials. Now when Sally gets here, she's made up a nice cue card of the coding order from lesson 22 on, showing this consolidation. And then these can all go away. And you can just use that coding order that she's making up for you.
So the coding order then starts at what lesson?
Well, lesson 22, you're starting the vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel. And pretty much that's a little higher level. They aren't basic words anymore and not as much. You start to get some multi-syllable words thrown in. So you can switch over to the nice little cue card that Sally is bringing for you today. Does that make sense?
Oh, sorry. Confused the student a little bit because like we do the vowel verse first and then, but that's not the order of the coding.
Right, that's just a review of an open and a closed syllable and what happens to the vowel. I think
I did the same thing.
that it's
She came
not
to
a
observe
great
and she's-
placement but
Yeah, that's it, because it didn't make sense to me, and I'm like, they're not, especially like if it was a floss roll and it had the SS, and then he was confused, then I'm boxing off the suffix S or not the suffix S, and I said, this order doesn't make sense, it needs the suffix, that's when Patty's like, and I was like, oh, that was not written. The way I read it was that you put the vowels
yeah, I mean,
first.
since it's all lumped together and it's one instruction right after the other, it appears to be, oh, this is one big coding order, but this is a concept and this is your coding order.
And I see, I didn't take it as a coding order. Because with my students, like in lesson 40, I began just to write them on the board and then put some examples just to remind them. And my administrator and I were trying to work through an observation. She said, maybe a little more visuals. And so I started putting like an example of the word, but I didn't take it that the vowel verse was part of the coding order. I said, just remember when you're reading, these are the things that you need to sort of look for. Some of those he doesn't need to do all the coding. He can read it right away. But if you need to, here's your code. These are some things you remember to do with your coding. I didn't like put it in any special order or anything, but I do like having these with my younger students that seem to be, one wants to rush through, so maybe this will help him slow down a little bit.
Okay, may I just, without picking on you, may I gently just correct something that I think you may have a thought, and if anybody else has it in this direction, they really need to code everything.
Okay.
You may have a middle schooler that is a great reader, that is dyslexic, and it shows up in comprehension, or it shows up in spelling, and their decoding is snappy, and you don't think that they need it. But I'm here to tell you, when you get to the second binder and you're in lesson 140, that's where it's going to show I should have made them code everything, because they're breaking syllables, 3 to 5 word syllable words down, and they're going to need every little detail of this.
So they should code every word in all the passage.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. I'm
Okay.
saying that don't assume that, well, they don't have to put a line through a hard S sound. Don't assume
Right.
that they,
Right.
all these little details of the specials, or, underlining a diagram, that's what I'm talking about.
Well, right, I always have one, but I mean, in the passage too, every word in the passage that needs, I'm not saying sight words, I'm not saying,
No, they don't need to decode everything in the passage, no.
Okay.
And Jennifer, who is, she volunteered today to talk to you about approaching a passage. She may have included that in what she's talking about. What I do is I follow what the author says to code that first sentence. And then if there's anything that I see they may have trouble with, or that they're stumbling with, if they make an error, that's when they code.
But then sentences that are listed as numbered sentences as well as in the
Yes.
passage? Okay.
Yes.
Code the
yes.
first sentence in the passage too.
Now, in spelling, they're coding everything. I'm talking about the text passage,
Yeah.
okay?
The first
And Jennifer
sentence.
can talk about that. But when you're doing spelling words
They code.
and sentences, in reading, the words in,
Yeah.
and your spelling.
always have to code the
dictation,
words.
yes.
in the
Dictation
first
of
reading part,
spelling
but I was talking about
words.
the passage.
Okay, in the passage, I don't have them coding everything, do you?
Depends on the student.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, we'll get to that.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. They box the suffix, and when you teach the z sound like dogs, they put the line through it. But in ing, they don't underline the ng, so sometimes they code what's in the box, and sometimes they do not code what's in the box.
Just with is that the only thing I'm thinking? Is that hard sound of S?
I've
Well, I think
saw
I'm
so far
thinking-
that they've.
Yeah,
only-
So I'm not that far along, so those are the only two suffixes I've
Yeah,
dealt with.
like you come up to nest, you don't have to code it with a breathe as,
Okay, so that was my other question. So like, let's say, it's dogs. I know I haven't gotten to it yet, that's just the words in my head. So they've boxed out the S, they go to mark it. Do you have them mark it right then and there, or go back and do it later when the voiced S comes up? You know what I mean?
okay, so, no, box your suffix.
Yeah.
Okay, you see the word dog, and you say to them, what's the first thing you do? And they're boxing their suffix, so they just box it.
Right.
Okay, then the next thing they're looking for any one of these, the twin consonants, and then they look for the voiced S, so that's when you
That's
talk
fine. It doesn't,
about
that one doesn't happen as
where
when
do
they
we
box
see an
it.
S in the
Okay.
entire word, and
Okay.
that's when you would determine, because at that level, they're still determining if it's a soft sound of S or a hard
Right.
sound, and that's conceptual, and
because they were saying, do we code it now, or do we code it, because when we were going through, I'm like, I don't know, I'm gonna ask that. And the other thing they're doing that's not on our list is they're doing the breathe every time they have the short, I'm having them, but that's not in our order, should I not be having them?
Well, that comes at the very end of all these specials. See, that's what's not on here either. I'm gonna go back to this. At the very end, after you've done all your picking apart the little word, then you look at your pattern and you talk to them, is it a closed syllable, what are we doing, breathe?
But what lesson is that still,
This is still on 19.
so like in all these lessons, 1 through 10 or whatever, I'm on 13 now, I've had them marking, coding the short vowel.
Yes.
Yeah,
When,
first
but
or after?
when?
Can you model?
I always do
it?
it
Yeah,
first.
model a simple word, like do
What's the suffix on it?
tins,
Yeah.
do the
Do
word
what?
tins.
Tins.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I look and the first thing I want to do is box my suffix, okay? I don't have any double vowels, I don't have any digraphs. What other specials might I have? Well, that S is something that we've recently talked about. Is it a soft sound or a hard sound? Is it voiced or unvoiced? Tins. Okay, yes, we are going to make that a hard sound. And then you can talk about why it is, that what's before it is a voice sound. So that's why it happens. And then you look through, you don't have any of the other specials, which are right in front of them, and then we code our vowels.
So the breathe comes at the end, basically.
Yeah, you code the vowels last.
Hmm.
Vowels are-
Mine just,
And do you
No, but
know
we
why?
get mine to slow
Because
down.
you're determining if you're gonna have an open syllable or a
right.
closed syllable. That's the whole thing.
That's an easy one, but if it was a 2-syllable word, you would have to figure out your syllable pattern to know, like if it was bacon, you don't want to code bacon. So you have to decide whether it's an open, you have to decide, it's a VCV
Okay,
pattern.
let's just say it's bacons.
No, and.
Because bacon's is definitely better than bacon. More than one bacon, always better.
So, first thing we do is we would
Box off the
box
suffix,
our suffix.
then we would do
No, nothing else.
Which is
vowel,
an advanced
consonant,
concept.
vowel.
You're not there yet.
This is advanced, so this is
This is an
beyond
advanced
lesson
concept.
22,
Yeah,
so
this is
here's
definitely
where
advanced.
all this syllable division comes in. So what we want to do next, and this will be on the cue card that you get from Sally, that she's bringing. You mark your vowels. I mark them at the bottom, you go from vowel to vowel.
I mark them at the top.
And
Tomatoes at the top.
most people mark them at the top, but I can tell you why in a minute. And you make a line, and you label, this is a vowel, this is a consonant, and this is a vowel. Okay? So I have a decision to make. Am I going to divide it here? And it would say what? This is an open syllable then? And it would say bacons. Or am I going to divide it? And they really should do, this will have been identified. They really should try and divide it the other way so that they're learning how to attack the word. So you have to ask them, can you say it 2 different ways? What are the possibilities this could be? And this would be a closed vowel, and this would be another closed vowel, so it would be bacons. And which one is it? It's definitely the bacons, and then you put your accent.
Can I ask what about the voiced S then?
Yeah, that
But when
would
was
have been
that?
done.
When's that? That's just my question, before or after the vowel, consonant, vowel?
Before.
Before, yes,
When you
because
box your suffix.
Then we do, I just wanted to make
So
sure.
wait, we do, right when we box ourselves?
Yes, you'll decide if it's voiced or unvoiced.
I thought we said no, we had to go do.
So can I ask?
I mean, I would just, when you box, you don't do that?
no, I go through, I box my suffix. So on this one, because this one's easy, if I box my suffix, and then I go back and see if I have any specials, and that's when I left to
Oh.
right, that's when I would
I
do
take
it.
care of
Our
myself.
specials givens,
Yeah.
because I hadn't So specials and gibbons are the
Same
same.
thing.
Same thing.
Okay, because I've been calling them gibbons.
That's fine too.
Okay.
That's fine.
So is there an order though for the specials? Like I just, when you somebody do something,
Left-
or
left to
diagram
right.
entry. Okay, so it doesn't,
Just
you
like
don't look at
following the
diagrams
reading
first?
pattern,
Like, I
everything's
wouldn't-
left to right.
It seems like that would be an important one to do first, so they can recognize it as one sound, but no, doesn't matter.
When it, I mean, she has it in order here, so up until then, go ahead and follow her order, but up until all these specials come together, just go left to right is, to me, it's the easiest.
So you do, just to make sure with, because I haven't gotten, I'm only on step 16, so I haven't gotten to the.
This is advanced.
Right, so you'd follow all the way through, so you'd still box off the suffix, then you go through the givens, and then you do the vowel, consonant, vowel. Okay.
I do
So
feel
can
like
we
that's
add-
not really just for the next round of people. I feel like for me, I mean, it makes total sense now, and I definitely get why we do that, hearing it. But I feel like because of how it's written in there, and they might want to think about this for the next group, is because of how that concept is in there and how we're first starting with just identifying if it's open or closed. That's how we've been starting, I feel like a lot of us, the whole time. Then we get into the special. So that's something that maybe we could note in there for the next round.
Well taken, and will do.
And I would love to see on these little charts, like that the breathe comes to the end, you know, because I'm like, I don't know where to stick it in. And I'm like, where does it make sense? And like when you say left to right, that confuses me too, because when you do the suffix and then you do the twin consonants, you're automatically going right to left. I'm still finding this very confusing. I'm sorry. I just am.
I thought this would
Clear it up.
clear it up.
I think if we'd done it that way.
I
right
think-
from the beginning.
yeah, I-
But now
I
I'm
think-
getting learned it.
Yeah, I
Because
think-
learned it wrong.
At the end of the day, as long as they code the vowel last, you're in good shape.
See, mine don't work.
No, mine
we all did
immediately.
first.
No,
That was
no,
our
no.
first thing.
Because I'm
Yeah.
going
Code
to
them.
right.
Right,
Right.
the vowel comes
Then we
first,
don't
then
stop.
six, and then go back left to
There
right.
you
Then
go.
follow
Go
my
box
command.
off the suffix.
We do that first.
Box, you always
Yeah,
have to
but for their givens,
box the suffix first.
for their givens, and then they do their vowel.
See, I haven't gotten to the given, so
I
I've just
haven't
been doing
either.
the suffixes and then left to right. And you come to the vowel before you come to a double consonant. So
Well,
that's
if you're
what
only
I've been doing
coding
that.
2 things at this point, you're in pretty good shape
Yes,
to
but
change
see,
it.
where
You know what I
the
mean?
important part is, when you come to multisyllable words, you need that vowel pattern in
Yeah.
order to determine if it's closed.
Right,
Right.
Or
It definitely
open,
makes
right,
sense.
and grieve and may cry.
right. You don't know if
That's why you
it's,
don't know which one it is.
you don't know what to code the vowel until you just determine the vowel pattern.
Can you do one?
Well, I
more?
get
Can you
that.
do
I'm just trying to figure out
flossing?
now, so I'm
The word
doing it
flossing.
consistently.
But if they only have
wanna make sure I
a
got it.
1-syllable word and there's like 1 digraph and 1 vowel in there, there's not much in there for them to, you know what I'm saying? So for you to say, I like how you coded the vowel of the breathe, I want you to code the digraph.
So box off the page.
First.
Okay, so you
Keep-
box
say
your
the vowel for
suffix.
last.
See, I was having them do the vowel
Just
and
change
then
the
the
pattern.
twin consonant, but you're saying do twin consonant, then go back and do vowel.
You always box your
Well,
suffix.
that was, yeah, always, but I'm
Yes,
done
and
with
so I
that.
have a twin consonant.
Right, then, okay,
So
I was
I've
doing
gone,
left to right.
in my
then.
mind, I've gone left to right. And the only thing that I'm coming up with is that the given or the special is that I have a
The
double
vowel
consonant.
goes last, see, I was
And
doing
then
vowel.
I
then
have a
twin
closed
consonant.
syllable, so I don't have to make a pattern. Okay, so it's a closed syllable and it gets the breathe. And I know that, I mean, accent never goes on a suffix, so it automatically goes on the syllable.
I think too, when the kids hit their own roadblock, then they'll have that ownership to, oh, I just can't put in a breathe, like now I've gotta think about the steps. Like it will be more valuable to them when they hit their own roadblock. I've experienced that myself, that the order becomes more purposeful to them when they finally hit that multi-syllabic word where they have to divide.
And when they make an error and they
Yeah.
read it and they can make a discovery as to why they made the error because they've coded something wrong.
Okay, we're gonna move on, and the other part that I had was pacing. So I'm gonna go through this, and this is probably, the best way to say this is just my judgment, okay? I gotta pay, if you don't mind, Sherry, I'm going to use your student as the example of pacing. Now, Sherry has a group of 2, and she only has 35 minutes, which is totally.
I changed it to 40, but.
Oh, great. It's totally unacceptable. However, she's changed it to 40 and she's asked for more time next fall, so there's growth there. So if you want to take one of these each. So Sherry's dilemma was, one student is extremely slow, and they're first grade?
I have a first grade in the morning and a first grade and a second grade in the afternoon.
So the one that I saw.
Was a first grade.
First grade, okay. Very slow, impacted greatly by the language disorder. And then the other student was absent, and Sherry reports that he misses an awful lot of school. So he is way behind. So her question was, how do I address a student that misses, and this one misses a lot, and the lack of time that I don't have built in, and slow students. So this was lesson 16 that she was on. And lesson 16 has 2 introductions and a concept. That's a lot, right? How many of you are finding that when you get to something like that, there's just no way you can fit it all in? And I think we're all in agreement, even when I was doing this myself.
Even one-on-one, 45 minutes, when you get to the longer
Yes,
lessons, you
I agree.
can't get them in. I have to split those longer lessons up, really read the passage and understand it.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you what was in that lesson, and then you can see how I judged to break it up. I judged to break this lesson up because of the age and the severity and the time into 4 lessons. She only sees the students 3 times a week, but I broke it up into,
5 times a week.
oh, 5, okay. So I broke it up into 4 lessons, okay?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat what you just said? So she has a first grader that she does 1 lesson for 5 days, 4
No,
days?
she sees the students 5 times a week,
Uh-huh.
and I broke this particular lesson 16 up into 4 days of instruction.
Gotcha.
Okay, so the phonemic awareness was 15 word pairs. So